All right, folks, you've heard it here first. A dire situation is brewing in Montecito. An unexpected red alert has surfaced, showing that our favorite royal outcasts, Harry and Meghan, seemingly lack the chops to generate their own cash. Hey there! Welcome to this fresh-off-the-press update on the often controversial duo, Harry and Meghan Markle. This is your go-to spot for all things related to the royals, whether it's Kate Middleton or the Queen. This time, we're zeroing in on Harry and Meghan, who, according to the latest reports, are wrestling with an uncomfortable truth. Their knack for minting money seems to be dwindling. It appears that they've become entangled in a web of their own making. Laziness, entitlement, and a lack of reliability all come into play. With a track record of cashing in on their own family ties, they've presented an image that's far from admirable. They may think they're running this show, but in reality, it's Meghan who's pulling the strings, and it's a move that hasn't exactly worked out in their favor. The way things stand, it looks like everything they lay their hands on crumbles. This disregard for the impact of their actions, particularly on their own family, the Queen and Prince Philip in their twilight years no less, is a heavy cross to bear. The emotional toll on the public, who've essentially watched Harry grow up, is immense, given the embarrassment and hurt they've caused. Their image isn't the same as it was during the starry-eyed days of their engagement announcement. Their brand, once so shiny and full of promise, is now tarnished by their own harsh words, dishonesty, and bouts of envy. They're nowhere near hitting rock bottom yet. They're still floundering, casting blame on everyone but themselves for the troubles they face. And when we say rock bottom, we're talking about exhausting all their options. It might be time to face the music, to mend fences, to turn back to the royal family and accept an annual stipend, to submit to the reign of the king. Their exclusion from the royal circle and the high society at large leaves them with few options. At this stage, settling into normal jobs in LA and leading ordinary lives as Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor might just be the best course of action for them. As it stands, their reputations have taken quite a hit due to their own acrimonious actions. The Duke and Duchess titles have slipped from their grasp, and without them, they're just your average Joes, no longer the notable figures they once were. Gone are the days of Harry's laid-back polo matches, and the flash of camera lights and red carpets have faded into the past. A puzzle that remains unsolved is their odd professional behavior, especially evident after their parting with Spotify. Despite having proposals from industry giants like Netflix and Spotify, they don't seem to heed the advice given. It's mind-boggling considering they have connections with people like Tyler Perry, a media mogul with a wealth of industry know-how, and a whopping $100 million in funding. Instead, they appear to be at a loss, focusing on inconsequential complaints like the size of their bedroom in the Queen's castle. As one fan pointed out, Perry's films have long been appreciated for their humor and wholesome content, often tinged with a Christian theme. So it's surprising to see him get tangled up with someone like Meghan, who's earned a reputation for being damaging and harsh. If there is a grudge against the British monarchy, it's unclear why that might be. What's also puzzling is why Perry, a savvy businessman, would offer his resources, like a private jet, without gaining something in return. Rumors are swirling that he was at baby Lily's christening, but left abruptly after arriving. All these raise a few eyebrows, to say the least. Harry and Meghan's only discernible talent seems to be talking, and they often don't do a great job at that. It's a sobering thought to imagine reaching middle age without having a clear purpose in life. In this case, the couple seems to be adrift, spouting nonsense that does little to contribute to society. They've siphoned off the joy and well-being of others to pad their own pockets. Not exactly a commendable character trait. Their downfall, when it comes, might be a breath of fresh air for many who are weary of their negative influence. Their actions against the royal family, particularly towards the Queen in her twilight years and ailing health, were shocking to say the least. Yet, there was a window of opportunity post-Oprah interview. If they'd focused on their business deals, made much-anticipated rom-coms as Meghan suggested, produced more than a handful of podcast episodes, and quietly engaged in philanthropic work, they might have turned the tide in their favor. But instead, they seem to have been consumed by petty squabbles with the British royal family, specifically with Catherine and William. Indeed, they may have claimed some victories, but it appears that they've ended up on the losing side of the larger conflict. And what a thrilling prospect it is to see where they'll land a decade from now. There's a simple way to test if their stumbling blocks are solely down to their critics. They could launch a product without attaching their names or making a fanfare with press releases. If it still flops, they can't lay the blame at the haters' doorstep. In theory, they could make a quiet fortune. The problem lies in their insatiable desire to show off, to project an image of success to the world. They had the opportunity to invest their cottage money in multiple properties, potentially making a profit from rentals. After establishing a successful business, they could have announced it, although it's doubtful they could resist sharing. The real question, though, is whether Harry would be welcomed back into the royal fold. You can't simply detonate a relationship and expect to be embraced with open arms whenever it suits you. Countless individuals have learned this harsh truth. Family members tired of being victimized, spouses weary of being taken for granted. If Charles were to bring Harry back into the fold, what would happen when Charles passes away? How different would William's refusal to support his brother be from Charles's refusal to back his own? And how does it differ from evicting Angela from the home the Queen promised she could remain in? There's no reason why Harry, despite his disgraced and shunned status, can't live on a modest £50,000 a year like many Britons. Free housing, meals, and security aren't entitlements, especially after he's turned his back not only on the monarchy, but also the country. As the old saying goes, what goes around comes around, and it's often true, as one commenter put it. Personally, it would be heartening to see both of them reconciled with the royal family and back on home soil in England. Indeed, it might serve them well to live humbly, perhaps in a gardener's cottage tucked away behind a woodshed, their activities closely monitored. Despite being quite a sympathetic person myself, the idea of Meghan being forced to scrape together a living as an advice columnist for a nondescript magazine, or being the first to be voted off on reality shows like I'm a Celebrity or Big Brother, does carry a certain irony. And why not grant them another of their wishes, to live as Mr. and Mrs. Spencer? Meghan may think it carries a certain nobility, but here in England, it's as commonplace as it gets. Plus, Spencer only holds second place on the department store's marquee, where most of us pick up our daily essentials. There's a world of difference between King Edward VIII and Harry. Edward VIII was king for nearly a year, and in that time inherited a vast personal fortune and an array of private properties from his father, George V. When Edward abdicated, while many properties like Buckingham Palace and Windsor went to the new monarch, he personally owned Sandringham and Balmoral, along with substantial personal wealth. A financial arrangement was struck in which George VI bought Sandringham and Balmoral from Edward and paid him an annual allowance. But this wasn't a magnanimous gesture. It was a necessity to pry these estates from Edward. Despite this, Edward, having inherited private wealth as a king, lived a lavish lifestyle. In stark contrast, Harry's personal wealth pales in comparison, and there's no apparent reason why the royal family should feel obligated to grant him an allowance. So, where do you stand on Harry and Meghan's career freeze? We welcome your thoughts in the comments section below. We hope you found this article informative and engaging. Don't forget to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. We appreciate you tuning into our newsletter and look forward to sharing more with you in our upcoming videos. Take care!